$183 million. That is what MGM Resorts lost in 10 days after a single phone call to a help desk. How does a company with infrastructure, protocols, and layers of access controls built specifically to stop sophisticated adversaries get bypassed by a name sourced from a public profile and a reset request that followed documented procedure? In 2023, Scattered Spider didn't breach MGM's defenses, they walked around them. 10 days of darkness across Las Vegas. Slot machines offline, hotel check-in systems down, revenues hemorrhaging by the hour. Every technical safeguard MGM had deployed became irrelevant the moment a help desk agent said yes. Caesars faced the same group that same year and chose differently: pay the ransom, avoid the headlines. The failure was not a software problem. It was an identity problem. Scattered Spider carries no flag. No nation-state sponsors it. No government handler directs its operations. Security researchers at Mandiant track it as UNC 3944. Palo Alto Unit 42 logs it under the designation Muddled Libra. Both labels point to the same loosely affiliated collective, English-speaking, domestically rooted, and operationally disciplined in ways that confound traditional threat models. The group's members are not foreign intelligence operatives working inside hardened facilities. Law enforcement indictments filed between 2023 and 2024 identified individuals allegedly as young as 19 years old at the time of operations. What they lack in institutional backing, they compensate for through methodical preparation and fluency, cultural, linguistic, and procedural fluency in U.S. corporate environments. Their documented attack signature centers on 3 techniques: vishing, which is voice-based phishing executed over live phone calls; SIM swapping, which redirects a target's phone number to an attacker-controlled device; and EFAY fatigue attacks, which flood a target with repeated authentication prompts until access is granted. These are not zero-day exploits, they are social and procedural vulnerabilities, gaps between policy and human execution. Reconnaissance precedes every operation. LinkedIn profiles, public corporate directories, and dark web data broker repositories supply employee names, reporting structures, and IT organizational hierarchies. CrowdStrike and Mandiant post-incident analysis both document LinkedIn as a primary intelligence source in this campaign. Scattered Spider handled intrusion. The encryption payload came from a separate operator, ALPHV, also known as Black Cat, a ransomware as a service affiliate supplying the encryptor on demand. Knowing MGM's org chart was reconnaissance. But the attackers didn't stop there. The breach begins with a phone call. A single threat actor, armed with one employee name sourced from LinkedIn reconnaissance, contacts MGM's IT help desk and executes a documented attack pattern. Impersonate the employee, request a multi-factor authentication credential reset, and conclude the call before verification can escalate. Per CrowdStrike and public FBI/CISA reporting, the reset is processed. No hardware token confirmation, no callback to the employee's registered device required. This is the structural vulnerability. Enterprise help desks operating at scale typically rely on knowledge-based authentication. Employee ID numbers, manager names, partial social security digits. That data is not classified. It is findable through data broker repositories, corporate directories, and the LinkedIn profile already pulled during reconnaissance. Once the credential reset is processed, the attacker authenticates directly into Okta, MGM's federated identity provider, confirmed in MGM's own public disclosure and third-party security analysis. This is where the attack transforms from a point of entry into an architectural catastrophe. Okta doesn't grant access to one system. It grants access to every enterprise application federated to it. One compromised session functions as a skeleton key across the entire connected infrastructure. Lateral movement from Okta reaches VMware ESXi hypervisor infrastructure, the virtualization layer beneath MGM's enterprise servers, enabling ALPHV/Black Cat to target virtual machines at scale. MGM files an 8K with the SEC on September 12, 2023, formally acknowledging the incident. One call, one reset, one identity provider. From help desk contact to domain-level access, under 24 hours, and the security team had not yet triggered a single alarm. Inside MGM's network, the attacker is now a trusted identity. The Okta session is valid. The federated credentials are authenticated. To every downstream system logging access events, this looks like an authorized employee moving through normal operations, not a ghost in the machine. Something worse. A face that belongs there. Lateral movement in enterprise environments doesn't require exploiting new vulnerabilities. It requires patience and permission inheritance. With Okta access established, the attacker navigates toward the highest leverage target in MGM's infrastructure. VMware ESXi hypervisors, the virtualization layer running beneath every enterprise server. ESXi is not one machine. It is the layer that runs all machines simultaneously. Compromise one hypervisor, and you don't knock down a wall. You pull the foundation out from under the entire building. This is a documented ALPHV/Black Cat affiliate playbook. Encrypting the hypervisor layer doesn't require propagating ransomware machine by machine. One encryption event at the virtualization layer takes down every virtual machine running on top of it, simultaneously, at scale, with near total operational effect. The cascade is immediate and physical. Slot machines lose authentication server connectivity and lock out. Hotel keycard systems go offline across multiple Strip properties. Digital check-in stops functioning. Internal communications fracture. For approximately 10 days, MGM's guest-facing operations revert to manual workarounds, pen and paper in a building designed to never need either. Visible to every guest on the floor. Detection failed for a structural reason. Large federated enterprise environments generate thousands of identity events daily. A single credential reset, by a legitimate appearing Okta identity, does not automatically surface as an anomaly. The signal existed. The noise buried it. The alarm system wasn't broken. It was drowning. Caesars Entertainment, targeted by the same group weeks earlier, identified the intrusion before encryption reached operational systems. Per Wall Street Journal reporting, Caesars paid approximately $15 million of an initial $30 million ransom demand, and the slot machines never went dark. MGM refused to pay. The encryption event was already complete. But here's what most people miss. The operational shutdown. The locked slot machines, the dead key cards, the 10 days of chaos on the Strip. That was the visible damage. The kind of wound you can photograph. What was happening beneath the surface, inside MGM's data infrastructure, was a different problem entirely, and it carried a very different price tag. When MGM systems came back online, the operational crisis ended. The financial and legal crisis had only just begun. MGM disclosed in its Q3 2023 SEC filing an estimated financial impact of approximately $100 million, a figure segmented between Las Vegas operational losses during the disruption period and one-time remediation costs. That number is a disclosed floor, not a ceiling. It does not capture downstream litigation, regulatory response, or the compounding cost of irreversible data exposure. The data breach dimension is structurally separate from the operational outage. MGM confirmed that threat actors exfiltrated personal information belonging to customers who transacted with the company prior to March 2019. The stolen records included names, contact information, dates of birth, and driver's license numbers, with social security numbers compromised for a subset of that population. Unlike encrypted servers, exfiltrated data cannot be restored. There is no remediation patch for a social security number. The regulatory consequence is automatic. A breach of this scope, spanning multiple customer jurisdictions, triggers mandatory state breach notification obligations across every applicable law. Multiple class action lawsuits were filed against MGM in the months following the disclosure. That litigation does not resolve in quarters, it resolves in years. The strategic comparison sharpens the discomfort. Caesars paid approximately $15 million. Slot machines stayed on. MGM refused. The disclosed impact reached $100 million, and that figure carries no legal or reputational cost attached. DOJ indictments against Scattered Spider-affiliated individuals filed in 2023 and 2024, with arrests in both the UK and United States, confirmed the group was not operationally secure. They were caught. But the customer data they carried out was already gone. The breach did not end when the lights came back on. And neither outcome, pay or refuse, answers the harder question. The MGM breach has a precise diagnostic label: identity perimeter collapse. The architectural assumption, that a valid federated identity session grants unrestricted lateral movement without continuous behavioral validation, was the exploitable premise. Scattered Spider found no zero-day vulnerability. They found the gap between written policy and operational execution. The front door was locked, but the key was taped to the doorframe. 3 controls would have interrupted the kill chain. First, out-of-band callback verification for every MEFAY reset using a pre-registered number, not the number supplied on the call. Second, privileged access management requiring step-up authentication for hypervisor-level access, regardless of a valid Okta session. Third, behavioral anomaly detection flagging first-time EFAY resets followed by rapid lateral movement. CISA and the EFBI specified all 3 in their November 2023 Joint Advisory on Scattered Spider TTPs. None of them were exotic. None required bleeding-edge technology. They required something rarer: institutional follow-through. The help desk agent who processed the reset was not negligent. They executed the documented process correctly. The process was the vulnerability. On the ransom question, 58% of enterprise CISOs surveyed by Absolute Security in 2025 stated they would consider paying to end an attack. Median enterprise recovery time runs 6 days. MGM paid nothing and absorbed a $100 million disclosed loss. Caesars paid, and the slot machine stayed on. But neither outcome is the strategic objective. The only defensible posture is detection before encryption, not a payment decision made under duress. By the time you're negotiating with a threat actor, every option left is a bad one. Every organization with a help desk, a federated identity provider, and a searchable employee directory carries this exact attack surface today. Not theoretically, operationally. Before we close, this analysis is educational only and does not provide exploit methodology. The question is not whether this control gap exists in your environment. It almost certainly does. The question is whether closing it has been prioritized before the call comes in.